Okay, so let's do it. Let's talk Endgame. This is full spoilers first and foremost. So if you don't know, now you know. Don't watch this if you haven't seen the movie. Now, with that, let's jump in. Okay. Like I said in my last review, this movie is basically movie history. This hasn't really been done on this scale before or at all. I guess you could consider the first Avengers the first part of doing this, but now they've taken everything they've done in the Avengers franchise and everything they've done in all of their other franchises, which I think there are about 11, I've heard. And they're trying to tie off a few knots while keeping some strands, keeping some strands going to continue some strands, which is crazy. They're basically making a movie based off of other movies and a comic book, which is not to be understated. Aside from what they did, I feel like the movie was still very good. Not perfect, which we'll get to, but very good. I feel like the directing and writing were cohesive and they were focused and the characters were focused and in line with what they had been in the past, which is, once again, not to be understated. It's very, very cool that you can get Rocket Raccoon, written and directed by different directors than he was in his own two movies, and he feels like the same character, In addition, I feel like all the actors showed up to, act. I felt like there were no phone-in performances. Every tear felt genuine. Didn't feel like those eye drop tears that they might put in there. Those Hollywood tears. They felt like the characters really worked at, finding motivations and all that stuff, and it was really good. I think Robert Downey Jr. is obviously a notable performance in a movie full of notable performances, but also Nebula, or the actress who played Nebula, which is Karen Gillan, did a fantastic job. She played two versions of one character, and they felt distinctive, and they were at odds with each other, and you felt for one and not the other, which is insane because it's the same person playing the same person. So that was really cool. Also, her arc as a character from Guardians 1 to Endgame is a really cool arc that I don't feel like people are talking about enough. So here I am talking about it. But like I said, this movie is not perfect. It's next to perfect in my opinion, or as good as it's really gonna get, or as you could get a movie like this. But there are some things that I did dislike, so I'm gonna get into those now, and that's where a lot of the spoilers are gonna come in. So let's get into it. First, tonally, I felt like the movie, it wasn't off, but it shifted, and I skipped a beat when it shifted once or twice, because it starts on a really dramatic note. We gotta find Thanos, Hawkeye's killing people, Cap and Tony are reunited, and it did not feel so good. It felt terrible, and it was hard to watch. And they're going through all this dramatic stuff, which I really enjoyed and made me feel emotions. But then they take this shift into let's get the band back together to travel through time. And that's when I bumped. They didn't lose me completely, but I did bump because 15 minutes ago I was crying because Ant-Man effectively lost his daughter, or his version of his daughter, and now he's, bop, 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 eating tacos, and I'm like, is he not sad? I'm sad. Which, let's get into the time travel as well. Time travel doesn't make any sense. It opens itself up to kind of plot holes and inconsistencies, and once they said, let's go back in time, I was like, all right, Dylan, turn off, just buckle in, boom. This isn't gonna make as much sense as you wish it did, and it didn't. If I'm being fair, it didn't. It's time travel. It doesn't make any sense. They set up their own rules for this universe, and they followed them relatively close enough, which is all I asked for. So good on you guys, but time travel doesn't make any sense because it's not real. In addition, there are a couple characters, well, actually a lot of characters who weren't the main characters, just kind of fell by the wayside, and they came in on the final battle. It was cool to see them do all their stuff. And obviously, we want more of the characters, but we couldn't get them because they were dead. So that's not a dislike. But Thanos was someone who I feel was in the movie, made some really smart decisions, and then right at the third act, they just kind of made him go like full bad, which I didn't know if they needed. He could have kept his motivations from Infinity War and just carried them over and then tried to do it again, because I felt like he had plenty of determination, just hardcore, pure, iron-fisted determination. But then it got personal with him, and he was like, I'm going to enjoy killing everybody, or at least everybody on Earth. And he went full bad, and it wasn't necessary. But also, Captain Marvel just didn't need to be in this. She did, and she didn't. And I'm not upset that she was in it, but I wish she was in it more, to be perfectly honest. But she wasn't. So, oh well. But I like just about everything else other than that. I really like the finished arcs. Obviously for Iron Man, and Captain America, even though his has time travel implications that make you just think, so did he create new branch universes? How did he get to Asgard? How did he get back to the present? Did he live through, or did he live a life and then somehow time travel back to the present? All that stuff. But I like it. Side note, the morning I was getting ready to watch the movie, I put on my Captain America shirt because he's one of my favorites. And I was like, man, I'm going to miss Steve Rogers because I was sure he was going to die or something. But I was ready. I was thinking to myself, I'm ready for Black Captain America. And they did it. Sam Wilson has the shield, and that's a complete side note, and a big spoiler, so oh well, if you're still watching this. In addition to all that, Fat Thor is a point of contention with people, and I don't really know why. I liked him. I would rather call him Depressed Thor, because that's what he is, and depression takes a lot of shapes, and sometimes it's the shape of people, stopping to care about taking care of themselves, and they gain weight, and people would think just because he makes jokes, they just turn him into like a jolly old Thor. But, in reality, just because you're depressed doesn't mean you don't know how to tell a good joke or do something cool. So I like Fat Thor, or rather Depressed Thor, and just about everything else except for the stuff that I said I didn't like. So that's my thoughts on the movie. Like, comment, share, you follow, subscribe, wherever you're watching this. Let me know if you want more of these longer versions of these reviews, and I'll do them for maybe some of the bigger movies that come out. But they won't all be this long for sure. And if you watch this far, thanks.